A proud female officer stands under blinding studio lights, smiling at the cameras, seconds before she shoves a calm black man on live television, unaware he's the judge overseeing police conduct in America. The cameras were rolling. The bright lights of the national broadcast gleamed off the polished badges of uniformed officers lined across the stage. It was supposed to be a proud day, a televised ceremony celebrating law enforcement excellence. But within seconds, that celebration would descend into one of the most unforgettable moments in modern television. As the female officer at the podium adjusted her microphone, a calm black man in a dark suit quietly walked into frame. His presence didn't demand attention until she saw him. What happened next silenced the crowd, froze millions watching at home, and forced America to confront a truth it had long ignored. Sergeant Melissa Hart had built her reputation on discipline, command, and confidence. After 15 years in uniform, she was the face of her department, blonde, sharp-featured, articulate, and proud. She stood for everything the police wanted America to believe about them: integrity, authority, and respect. The ceremony was being broadcast from Washington, D.C., part of a national campaign to highlight police unity and reform. The air buzzed with anticipation as officers from across the country took their seats. The audience included journalists, politicians, and community leaders. Among them sat Judge Nathaniel Cross, a federal appointee known for his work on civil rights and accountability within the justice system. But few in that hall recognized him. Dressed simply, without his robe, he appeared to be just another observer, quiet, composed, his expression unreadable. Melissa, however, saw him differently. To her, he looked like someone out of place, someone who didn't belong among rows of decorated officers. She noticed him rise, his presence tall and deliberate, walking toward the stage for a segment meant to honor judiciary collaboration. The cameras followed. Applause faded into murmurs. The moment that was supposed to celebrate unity now teetered on tension. And within seconds, Melissa would make a decision that would change her life, her career, and a nation's conversation forever. When Judge Cross approached the stage, Melissa's expression hardened. She was mid-speech, describing the importance of respect for authority, when she paused, noticing him step closer to join her on stage. The producers hadn't briefed her on a guest. No one told her this man, this quiet, middle-aged black man, would be standing beside her on live television. The confusion triggered something deeper than protocol, something unspoken but all too common. She frowned, then turned toward him sharply, her voice cutting through the microphone. She didn't have to say much. Her body language said it all. She gestured to the side, signaling that he should wait off stage. When he didn't move, her frustration grew visible. Millions watching could sense the tension. The air in the studio thickened. Cameras zoomed in. Melissa's hand went out, motioning him to stop. Then, in a moment she would replay for the rest of her life, she placed her palm firmly on his chest, pushing him back. Gasps filled the room. The judge stepped slightly back, his composure unbroken. He didn't raise his voice or resist. Instead, he simply looked at her, calm, steady, and heartbreakingly dignified. "Ma'am," one producer's voice whispered in her earpiece, too late. The live feed caught everything. The push, the shock, the silence. Across the nation, living rooms fell quiet. Viewers didn't know who the man was, but they knew what they'd seen. And the image was unmistakable. A white officer shoving a black man on stage under the banner of unity. Melissa's instincts told her to keep speaking, to recover the moment. But the crowd's energy had shifted. Reporters stood. cameras turned away from her and toward the man she had just humiliated. Judge Cross didn't speak. He simply stepped back to the microphone when the host hurriedly intervened, introducing him with trembling words. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Honorable Judge Nathaniel Cross, Chair of the Federal Task Force on Law Enforcement Conduct." The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Melissa's breath caught. Every camera refocused on him. The same man she had pushed moments earlier now stood as one of the nation's top figures in judicial oversight, the very person overseeing investigations into police misconduct. The silence that followed wasn't just awkward, it was historic. Judge Cross stood tall behind the podium. He didn't acknowledge the push, didn't correct her, didn't retaliate. He simply began to speak. His voice was calm, smooth, and devastatingly measured. He spoke of unity, not the kind displayed in speeches, but the kind that survives humiliation. He spoke of dignity, not in authority, but in restraint. And as his words flowed, the weight of what had just happened became unbearable for those watching. Melissa stood off to the side, her face pale, her eyes downcast. Each sentence from the judge struck like a mirror held to her soul. The nation watched the irony unfold in real time. A man preaching grace moments after being publicly disrespected. Social media erupted. Hashtags spread within minutes. The clip was replayed, analyzed, slowed down frame by frame. Commentators called it the shove that shook America. By evening, Melissa's name trended across every platform. Some defended her, calling it a misunderstanding, but most saw it for what it was, another unfiltered moment of racial bias caught in daylight, stripped of excuses. What made it powerful wasn't the aggression, it was his response. The judge never showed anger. He embodied what justice should look like, patient, poised, and unwilling to descend to hate. By the time he finished his speech, the applause was thunderous, not out of pity, but out of recognition. In a single broadcast, the country had seen the hierarchy of power reversed, not through force, but through grace. Melissa walked off stage moments later, trembling. For the first time in her career, her badge felt heavy. The title that once defined her now chained her to her own blindness. And somewhere in the back row, a young black student watching the broadcast whispered softly to his mother, "That's what strength looks like." The video didn't fade with the night. It burned across every news cycle, every social feed, and every conversation that mattered. The moment became more than an embarrassment. It became a mirror for a country wrestling with its reflection. Days later, Melissa issued a public apology, but words, once easy for her, now felt hollow. She met with Judge Cross privately, no cameras, no microphones. Those present said he forgave her, but forgiveness didn't erase the consequence. Her department placed her on administrative leave pending review, but the true consequence wasn't professional. It was personal. For the first time, Melissa saw the depth of what she'd never questioned, the quiet biases buried beneath confidence, the reflexes shaped by centuries of conditioning. Judge Cross, meanwhile, didn't capitalize on the moment. He declined interviews, refused to make it about revenge, and redirected attention toward reform. His calmness inspired a wave of change. Police departments across several states adopted mandatory bias awareness programs. The Department of Justice expanded its Civil Conduct Oversight Division. But beyond policy, the story lived on as something deeper, a parable about sight. Because in that brief, brutal second on live television, America had seen itself, the pride, the prejudice, and the possibility of redemption. Years later, that clip would still be shown in classrooms, in diversity trainings, in social justice documentaries. It wasn't remembered for the shove, it was remembered for the silence after. The stillness where truth stood taller than uniform or title. And in that stillness, a single question lingered, not just for Melissa or for the viewers who gasped that day, but for every person who ever judged before understanding. How many times must the truth humble arrogance before we finally learn to see each other as equal?